Hola, whizzy wizards, and welcome back to the pursuit of happiness with me, Pigtail Gurl, your friend and fellow wizard. And today's show is about Pluto in Aquarius, or so-called Pluto in Aquarius. It was requested on Facebook or asked of me, why am I not making a video on this topic? And they can't find any Vedic or sidereal articles on it. So I thought I would explain a little bit about that, my thoughts. So, you know me, I like facts, I like truth. I really don't like deception. And so the minute I find that something is based on something hinky or just dodgy in any way, I just steer clear of it. And that's how I feel about tropical astrology, because it's not actually based on true star maps or true placements of the planet. And I know people who are really into their Western astrology will argue whatever about it and that it has other meanings, but it doesn't, because astrology is a science, if you follow it and believe in it, that very clearly is based on very precise calculations down to the last degree. And this is why when you're born, your astrology for your birth chart is so important, to know your exact location, the time of your birth down to the minute, because this all changes your birth chart and your ascendant and your rising sign and your moon and all of those things. And tropical astrology, which I followed for years, without question. I mean, I was never really that into it, but it was interesting. I used to read my monthly horoscope for the wrong sign, because I used to believe I was Taurus, and it never made any sense. All the good things she said that were going to happen never did. And I now know I'm actually an Aries, and it's because I now follow the true sidereal placements of the planets. Because you can't really do a science, you can't do maths, you can't really do any calculations unless you have the correct information to start with. So how can you make predictions or calculations based on 40 placements of planets? And this brings me very nicely to Pluto entering Aquarius, which it isn't. It quite clearly isn't. And if you look on any astronomy map, which I like to do, I like to see where the real placements of the stars are. I'm just opening my screen here. I go to one called the Sky Live. And I'm going to insert here. Yeah, it's called theskylive.com. You can go yourself. You can track certain planets or constellations and see what's going on. Right, let me find my Zoom. So it clearly states that Pluto is firmly in Capricorn, where it entered around the beginning of the pandemic, around 2020, 2021. That's when it changed sign and it went into Capricorn, and it's going to remain there until 2040. Then it goes into Aquarius. And I'm going to put in some screenshots here from the Sky Live. First of all, for the date today that I searched, 20th of November, and to show you, it says in Capricorn here. You can pause it and look. And then here I'm going to show you where it says it's going to be in the distant future. I think I put 2039, November the 10th. So again, pause and have a look. See where it says constellation Cap. And you will clearly see that this is why astronomers laugh when they see Western astrology or tropical astrology, because it's hailing things and celebrating things that aren't actually real. It's not actually there. And it's like saying, if you're going to do anything, you've got to know what you're doing. You have to have the proper information. Like with mathematics, you can't just say 2 + 5 = 11. And just because everyone agrees with that, that's just a fact. It's, well, 2 + 5 is 7. 2 + 5 is 7. It doesn't, in science and mathematics, these are important things. You have to have the actual data if you're going to make a calculation. If you're making a calculation now based on the fact that Pluto's in Aquarius, but it's far from being in Aquarius and it's all the way back still in Capricorn, how are you making your predictions? I mean, you're just pulling it out of the ether, really, aren't you? But of course, the power of belief and the power of the mind is very real. So, of course, if you believe you're now going into this Aquarius age and you've told yourself over and over again all these wonderful things are about to happen. It could be you're going to experience some of that energy because you've told yourself through affirmation and subliminal suggestion and watching videos that it's a thing. So you're going to be expecting to see it because we have that, reticular, is it the reticular activating system? Is that the right name for it? That makes us see what we expect. we we see the things we expect to see there. If someone suggests to you you're going to see something, you'll likely see it or notice it, and that's how the human consciousness works. So you've got loads and loads of people very excited, loads of videos on YouTube, tarot readings, special astrology updates on this, but it's just not based in any facts. So Pigtail Girls personally doesn't follow anything that's just not based in fact. If I find that something is not factual, I just immediately discard it or discount it. And until the point I've proven to myself completely that something is either true or not true, then, or that if I haven't proved to myself that it's true, I'm going to discard it. If I can't prove it's true, in other words, I'm going to discard it. And so the minute I looked into tropical astrology star maps, I realized and I researched that they are based on out-of-date star maps that are going further and further out of date every year that passes. So there's that. So Pluto is still firmly in Capricorn. We had it announcing its arrival during the pandemic. So you won't find any Vedic or sidereal reports on it because it's not happening, quite frankly. So anyway, of course, you can always make your own choices. You're a grown wizard. You can do your own research and come to your own conclusions on that. But personally, I'm just tired of deception, half-truths, truths mixed up with lies, because this to me is all that vol, DMA, Wetiko virus energy. It's all about confusion, deception, half-truths, anything to steal your power away from you, not to give you the full story, not to give you your real story. That's what that false matrix is, just a web of lies. That's what it wants to do, keep you from having any power. So it's like if you were going to do, say, a ritual and it was relying on some constellation or the planet Pluto being in Capricorn, and your ritual needed it to be there, just as this is just a like random example, to put my point across. But if Pluto, meant to be in Aquarius, you thought, oh, now it's time we do my ritual. But if it's not there, then again, it's taking away your power or ability to do that thing you want to do. You see what I mean? Or if a spell, I'm using magic and spells just as an example, needed a full moon, you wouldn't do it on the half moon or the new moon. You would do it on the full moon. But at least with the moon, we can see it. So no one can trick us into believing whether it's full, half, or a new moon because we can see it with our own eyes. Well, if you have a telescope, you can also go to astronomy maps and all of the sky watching apps and maps they have online. You can get your telescope, you can line it up. And if you're looking for a planet, if you're following the tropical map, you're not going to be able to find it with your telescope. You're going to have to look elsewhere. And, that's really telling me something. And it's also like, I just wanted to bring this in. This will probably put other people leave my channel in a hurry because I only like truth here. It's like that Tartaria mythology that goes around the internet. Right? Anything that only begins on the internet, I'm really dubious about, because when I was growing up, I had one of my best friends and someone I spent hours and years talking to was a very old lady who lived down my road called Dorothy Daniels. Dotty, Granny D, we used to call her. And she was born in the year 1899. And she had memories of her family, her parents, and her grandparents, and even her great grandparents. And, people talked before the TV, people actually spoke to each other and told each other stories. If there was some mud flood and there was some advanced civilization, there would be a memory of it beyond the internet. There would have been families that would have known about this, who would have had it in their knowledge, who would have passed it on to their children and told them about it. But that never happened. So one, that's already my logical brain, like that's a really big red flag to me going off. And then if I joined the group and then the first 3 bits of information come up, I give it a go and have a look. Everyone's like, oh, have you heard about that Tartaria in the mud flood? I'm like, oh, let me check this out. the first three articles, the photos were had articles about them and were completely wrongly labeled. I did a quick, reverse search on the images. I found out the images they use are completely fake, and the real stories that go with the images are completely different. Now, if you have to sell me your concept based on fake information, false data, plus I've got that logical part of my brain that remembers how none of my elderly friends or relatives growing up ever mentioned their grandparents telling them about that. I mean, people talk, you remember things. I tell my little girl things that I remember. You would, especially before the TV. Now everyone's online. No one's talking to each other. Back in the old days, like the real old days, Victorian era, there wasn't a TV, there wasn't a cinema. Everyone chatted over their back fence. People still chatted with their family. Family was a strong thing. You had the stories. I heard stories about the war, about, the older days and, the technology and the advancements back in the Victorian age, and how much Granny Daniel's family had seen things change in her lifetime, like the introduction of the phonogram, as she called it, the record player, and she loved that. But there was no stories of advanced civilizations or Tartaria, which was, I think, originally just this tiny little place on the map. I don't know why they picked that out of all the places to build internet myth around. But there really is no historical data to back that up. It's just a myth. And I'm really just telling these stories to encourage you to always use your thinking, logical brain. Some things can sound very fancy, and if you don't know about research and what's considered good primary sources of information and evidence, you might be bamboozled by a few misinterpreted memes and articles with photos in that you don't take the time to go and Google check and see what it actually was, for yourself, which I do with everything. That's how I come to conclusions of whether we're being lied to about someone or not, is I'm going to go and look up. If someone says someone said something or done something, I'm going to trace it all the way back to the source like a journalist, and I'm going to look it up. And if someone tells me to watch a documentary on someone that might change my mind about them, I'm going to go and watch it. And I listen to all different sorts of information and media. And I also love to follow proper historians who do real research, and alternative proper historians, not internet mythology pushers like Tartaria. And of course, it's just to me like another flat earth theory. It's one or the other. Mythologies, New Age, it's the Pluto age of Aquarius. It's just social media and the internet, and even before that, it just churns out all this garbage, all this deception non-stop. And of course, it's very successful and people love it. And they don't have anything else to do maybe at home as a hobby. So they go online and they just get drawn into all of these things, and it all sounds very good. And they think there's all this evidence, but it's just a drain and a waste of your time, your attention. You could be doing something positive or constructive, or learning about something that's really true and developing, your own faculties as a wizard. Instead, you're wasting your time with deception or something that's not factual. So to conclude this episode, if I'm looking at astrology, and if I'm going to accept it as a science, this is me personally, I need to know that the astrologers are following actual star maps with actual physical correct placements down to the degree. So I'm always going to trust the astronomy maps, because that's what people who have observatories use. That's what people who have telescopes use. You can see it all up there for yourself. But, you've always got to put the time in yourself to do all of the cross-referencing and the research like you're an actual journalist. And I don't mean just looking inside conspiracy forums or conspiracy website. I mean, like out there in normal reality land, like, Google. I know Google is a bit schmoogle, but at least you can do reverse image search and find lots of information, that's real information, like from newspaper clippings, stuff that's been posted like years before. Or this is a great example. I'm just going to use the Tartaria one. One of the first ones that I saw that was complete nonsense was they showed this absolutely perfect train that was like some kind of steam train or something. And they had it labeled as it had been discovered under the mud because it was being brought out of the ground and the mud was like this, you could see. And there was doors and it was being pulled out. And they were saying that it had been dug up from the mud and it was pristine, almost new. And this was proof of the mud flood and there's Tartaria story. But a quick search, I found that it was a train that was actually had been in a museum, and those doors that were open were just the vaults in the museum, and they were bringing the train out for one of the first times. I don't remember if it was in Germany or something. I mean, this was a long time ago, and it was like this the true story about this train. I mean, it was quite easy to look up, and yet this Tartarian mythology around it was just complete nonsense. It was utter nonsense, completely made up. Someone just sat there and just made it up. And I don't know who these people are that do this, if they just like attention or if they're paid to do it. I guess it's probably a mixture of both. It's the same, I guess it's money, isn't it? They know, especially in this environment still, that deception wins because it's been a deceptive matrix so long that it gets supported. And the people who aren't deceptive are less supported in the false matrix. But now with the proper matrix coming up, the truth is going to be more supported, and all that's deceptive is going to be more realizable. People are going to start to see it more because it's not going to be so supported. This is why, fake channelers, they blow up on the internet. They get rich, they get famous, they do sellout shows, they get invited to all the conferences. It's almost like it's this whole BS machine. And the BS needs more BS to feed it. And when you're plugged into it, it's like if you see it like a BS beast, you're just putting your energy into that BS beast, right? And it's sucking your energy into it, your money, your time, your energy, everything is going into that beast. It's better to just disconnect. That's why I sometimes say to people, it can sometimes be better just not to believe anything. Sometimes, right? Just don't believe anything and always assume that something can be false or a lie, right? I always used to think everything was true first glance. That was my naivety, innocence. Then I started to become much more skeptical and be like, okay, but is this BS? Okay, what happens if I reverse their speech? What's going to come out there? Okay, what happens if I reverse Google this search? What about if I look into their background? Why don't I find out some facts about this person? Have they got any legal cases against them? That's a good one. You can find out if you know their full name, whether they're in court being accused of fraud or any kind of crime, right? So you can be your own journalist. You can find a lot of information just by going on the normal web, online, using whatever search engine you want to use. Obviously, I've mentioned Google. Some people don't like that, but I don't really find, to be honest, Brave, DuckDuckGo, Google. I mean, it's pretty much all the same now. I don't really find much difference. And you can still do research on it. Obviously, when you do some searches to do with health, the BS bits come up first. But if you just want to get some sort of factual bit of information, if you dig and you're clever with your wording, you can certainly still find some facts and some truth. So, my dears, I hope this has enlightened you guys as to where I stand on Pluto, still in Capricorn, still going to be chugging away there in Capricorn. Got until 2040 until it goes into Aquarius. But by all means, celebrate, expect good things, enjoy your life, and ignore everything I've said if you wish. Anyway, I love you guys. Always for the truth, me. It's always got to be truth, or I'm not interested. Yes, I will see you on the next episode. One love. My sloth is poking through. The sloth of truth.